Well, it's Movember, day 6, and this morning when I went walking, I was listening to Recovery by Russell Brand. And I've been a 12-stepper now for over 32 years, and my whole life changed when I found the program that I first attended, and from that addiction, I received that gift of abstinence, and have been in recovery ever since. And when Russell put out that book on the steps, I was a bit skeptical because you know him as a comedian and he shoots from the hip, and I didn't really follow him more recently. But I'll say this: since this book was written, I would say that the recovery book of Russell Brand is probably going to be the most popular and most influential book on the steps since Bill Wilson wrote the original. Now I'm a NA man, and so I will read from that in a bit later on. But why I think that is the case is that I just love the way that Russell shoots from the hip, and even though he sort of wrote a little bit of a parody of the steps, it was hard hitting and to the point, and modernized them, but still staying true to their fundamental message, which I'm not going to be able to convey to any naysayers, or if you're watching this thinking the 12 steps are rubbish, God bless you, there's nothing I can do about that. I've worked with a lot of people that don't believe in them. I'm in a group of professionals I meet as Yalom support group, and they won't refer people to the 12-step fellowships. They've got opinions on them. And I suppose I can't help but have my bias. My disclaimer is they saved my life, and it continues to save my life. I just went to a convention in Sydney that I've been going to when I can. The first time I went was 32 years ago, and I see people there that I saw 32 years ago, and many people I've met along the way. I can't explain that to anybody. So as a professional, what it tells me that works in the field of addiction is that there really is recovery. But it does seem like you've got to get through the eye of a needle to get it. You've got to get to that absolute point of desperation that you are willing to go to any lengths to do whatever it takes to get well. And people die crawling through that needle, but I wouldn't blame the steps. I'd blame addiction. So, what I also think that's really impressive about his book is the way that he is able to convey what happens in an addict's head. There's a saying in AA that thinking leads to drinking, and an NA, an addict alone, is in bad company. Like when you're left alone with your own thoughts. For addicts, the enemy's within. And the steps, as they're written, really address that, just hard hitting. And it seems like this incredibly big task that you don't think you're ever going to do it. And in NA, they sort of say, look, you know, we didn't become addicted in one day, so remember, easy does it. If you go to Russell Brand's website, he's got a really simple, down-to-earth version of the program, and I love it. And so what I thought I'd do just for this video is go through the step, you know, like what the step is and what Russell calls it. So in the 12-step fellowship, the first step is we admitted that we're powerless over our addiction, that our lives have become unmanageable. And when Russell talks about that and tries to make it a little bit more appealing, and this is a swearing alert, so if you're bothered by it, you're going to need to sort of pause now or put your fingers in your ears. The first step for him is, are you a little bit fucked? And when you're an addict, that question makes sense because you've usually tried everything you can do to control it. And his questions are about, you know, what is it in regards to what you feel fucked about? What do you want to change? And so he has 16 questions here on step 1 that are really, you know, he speaks to the broader issues of addiction. And so if you've grown up in one of those major fellowships, there's plenty of literature there. But what I love about the book Recovery is it's just geared up to anybody out there that's really struggling, that might need a handrail out of hell. And so are you a little bit fuck's the first question. Step 2 is we came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. And so when Russell challenges people around that. It says, could you not be fucked? Is there a chance that maybe there's something that could help you if it wasn't just up to you? And I think in that second step, for me, the could word was always a link word. Is that, well, why is it could? Why isn't it a guarantee? And it's written that way, I believe, for me, that how I've understood it is, man, if I don't make a decision to do something different, nothing is going to change. And so that could word, well, I could be restored to sanity, but I've got to do what's next. And what's next is the third step. We made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him, all right? Or as we understood God, depending on what fellowship you go to. So there's a freedom in the 12-step fellowship to believe in something. And for atheists and agnostics, God could be good orderly direction, or just a group of druggies, or the program itself. Step 3, as Russell puts it, is simply put, are you on your own going to unfuck yourself? And if you've worked with addicts or love an addict or are an addict, you know how many times you've made those promises to self that this time it's going to be different. We can't tell anybody. We live this compartmentalized life. We gaslight everybody else about what's really going on and live in this isolation thinking I'll fix it on my own. And so that question of are you on your own going to unfuck yourself really punches an addict right in the face where it hurts. And so that's a big question. Am I unsatisfied, limited, empty, or anxious in my relationships? Do my feelings lead me to make or not make decisions, or not take actions, or say or not say things that I regret? It goes on. It just helps you sort of dig through the layers of what's going on, what's stopping me unfucking myself. And the third step being we made this decision to turn our will and our life is, well, I've got my will, what I want to happen, and my life, things in it that I want things to happen to, that largely if I keep pushing, they're not happening anyway. And the willfulness takes us back to using whatever it is we're using. So the third step, those first 3 are really important. Step 4 is we made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. For many addicts, I remember hearing Bob D share on a tape online where he said that in addiction, it's like every bill you get, you're driving a station wagon, you just throw it over your shoulder. I'll deal with that tomorrow, I'll deal with that tomorrow, I'll deal with that tomorrow. And then when you get sober or clean, stop doing whatever it is that was fucking you up, it's like hitting an embankment and all that stuff pouring over you and just feeling overwhelmed. So pretty quickly, once you can make that decision to accept you're powerless and life's unmanageable, that you can't do this on your own, you're going to need help, and preferably, a spiritual help from God, is that then I got to clean house. I got to clean house quick because I'm in trouble. If it's a house inspection tomorrow, I'm going to get evicted. So I've got to clean house and do an inventory. And that's really challenging for folks. And what, Russell writes is, write down all the things that are fucking you up and have ever fucked you up, and don't lie or leave anything out. It's like Patrick Carnes makes that point that we must be honest to the people that are going to help us, especially the awkward details. I was speaking to someone today and they had to share some awkward details, and I saw their pain, but I was just glad that they could share it. This morning, when I went and saw my own therapist, I was talking about the awkward details, and I think therapy is about getting a different perspective on the awkward details. Same with the program. Step 5 is we admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. What I love about Pia Melody's take on step 5 is that I'm basically saying this to God, and my sponsor's the witness. This is a confession, really. It's really sharing my heart and owning all the things I've done to hurt other people. And Russell, in his program, writes that down. Honestly tell someone trustworthy how fucked you are. It's a big step sometimes to tell someone all those bad things that we feel about ourselves and think about ourselves, all the stuff we carry with us, our baggage. But it seems to be we can't make our way forward because within that baggage is our own defects of character that we need healing about. Step 6, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. So now we've started that relationship with a higher power. We've cleaned house. Now we're really saying, well, look, God, please come into my life and show me how to live here. Show me how to, what are the assets I need to do to replace these. And when Russell addresses that, he talks about it as, well, that's revealed a lot of fucked up patterns. Do you want to stop it seriously? And so it challenges us really in the stark light of reality of, do I want to continue this? And in addiction, and I'll go over Patrick Carnes' cycle of addiction in this Movember campaign, is that we got so much impaired thinking, it's so hard to really know what's real or not real. And that's what Kahn says is our most essential skill as a human being, is to know what's real and not real. And so this is really getting all the stuff we've done up and out of the way, and then we can look at the defects that are there, because step 7 is we humbly ask him to remove our shortcomings. So at this point, we desperately, some of us get on our knees and say, please remove this. And then we work diligently and ask about the replacement with the asset. What's the asset of this that I need to work on? So we can ask for the negative thing to be removed, but we can put a lot of effort, and faith without works is dead. So we can put a lot of effort into building the asset. It's not just about asking for this sort of lottery ticket from God. Are you willing to live in a new way that's not all about you and your previous fucked up stuff? And he talks about, you have to ask yourself, what do I want to change? Am I going to change it? And do I commit to change? And pulling from step 7 as they were originally written, it's like, well, God, come into this with me. Join me in this and help me and take this, humbly take this away. Step 8, we made a list of all persons we had harmed, became willing to make amends to them all. Part of clearing out the baggage, once we do a step 4 and then that step 5, confession, look at the defects of character, get really clear on what they are and who they've injured, then we can now look at, well, what do we do with that? Who are the people in here I need to make amends to? So step 8 is prepare to apologize to everyone for everything affected by your being so fucked up, is Russell's sort of funny take on it. But it's true. Okay, I've got to be willing and prepared to do that and go through that list. At this point, we're not making the amends, and so we're just looking at, well, who should be on that list? What do I need to make amends for? What's the exact nature of what I did? What was underneath this, and really work with someone, sponsor or therapist, on how to do that. Step 9, we made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. And that's an important part of this, because for some, this isn't about just us meeting our selfish needs. We've got to make sure that it doesn't, as Russell says now, apologize unless it would make things worse. For some of us, we got to hold on to that and share it with a priest, our sponsor, the fellowship, write it on a letter and burn it. We mightn't be able to get access to the person because we've injured them or circumstances don't allow it. The best example ever given around this is, well, if I had an affair with a neighbour and their husband and the wife chose to stay together, then there would be no great benefit of me going over and apologising to the husband. That's for the wife to do. So step 10. Step 10 is we continue to take personal inventory, and when we're wrong, promptly admitted it. So it allows us to, now that we've 1, 2, and 3, is that, well, I'm powerless and unmanageable, I can't do it on my own, and hand our will and our life over to get that support. 4, 5, does the inventory and confesses it. 6 and 7, looks at the defects and asks for them to be removed. 8 and 9, identifies the people we'd harmed and then asks them to, being willing to make amends to them all. Now we've done that sort of big house clean. The step 10 is a daily keeping on top of it, because we can't afford resentment. We can't afford to keep refeeling stuff. And either stuff from the past might come up in a step 10, or just the current stuff that we need to address. And promptly admitting it is just that we need to move on really fast to, we need to get honest fast as addicts. So step 10 is watch out for fucked up thinking and behavior and be honest when it happens. And that's Russell's take on step 10. So step 10 just keeps our finger on the pulse every day so this stuff doesn't bank up again, and we can sort of pull this stuff out of the stream instead of it blocking up and becoming sort of rancid. Step 11, we sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for the knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. There's a lot in step 11. I've recently had a bit of a spiritual awakening again myself, where I've realized, wow, I'm not seeking just for the knowledge and power, of God's will for me, the power to carry it out through prayer and meditation. I've increased the way I've prayed, and I've increased my sort of laying down and listening to God and tuning into God. So step 11 is such a big thing. But it's an important part of that ongoing growth and journey, and Russell just keeps it simple. Stay connected to your new perspective. There is a lot of freedom in the 12-step world for you to go out and find a dogma or a story or a religion that works for you, or a belief system that works. But within the 12-step fellowships themselves, you have the freedom to believe in what what works for you, that new perspective. And so step 11 really is, look, on a daily basis, I need to hand things over, moment to moment basis, hand things over through prayer and meditation, you know, praying only for the knowledge of God's will, you know, continuing that conscious contact with a power greater than me. Now, step 12 is having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps. We tried to carry this message to addicts and to practice these principles in all our affairs. Now, step 12 really is allowing us to go through the ongoing practicing of the principles. We get this spiritual awakening. We're alive. We used to be asleep and now we're awake. If you look at that idea that reality, knowing what is real is your most essential skill, then we've come out of that delusion of addiction and now we're in reality. It's not pleasant. Having a spiritual awakening doesn't mean we feel joyful and walk around, oming all the time. It's having a spiritual awakening sometimes is painful. And there's things that we can't not see anymore about ourselves and others in the world. But it does mean we're alive. It does mean we're active in our life. And it does mean that just for today, I have a program. I've got something now that I can work. And so for Russell, he just simply describes it as look at life less selfishly, be nice to everyone, and help people when you can. So this was a little bit longer than I wanted it to be. But the program you can download off Russell's website, real simple. If you're in a 12-step fellowship that, you know, like AA or like Narcotics Anonymous, I'm sure that you will have access to steps literature. But if you know somebody that's really struggling out there and has sort of a God-shaped hole that needs filling, then maybe steer them towards that book. It's funny, it's entertaining, and it's real. The one thing I was really impressed with is just the way he shared his inner world. If you're an addict and you think that way, just that sort of therapeutic value of one addict helping another, as they say in Narcotics Anonymous, is without parallel. This has been for Movember. I have been, I waxed my mustache. Be very happy to know before this little video with my Percy Nobleman. I'll have to approach Percy Nobleman. Very good waxing product. So this is for Movember. If you do know a man in your life that is doing this campaign, please donate to their campaign just a little bit. It doesn't have to be a lot. And if you got it, give it. And I'll tune in tomorrow. Be gentle with your heart. Talk to you then. Bye.